We use ours, but yeah.
Okay, well, I guess it's 11:01. If you want to go ahead, we can get started here.
Okay. I feel like we take one step forward and two steps back. You know, we're all focused around the courts reopening and being able to get back to work doing that. And I will say that the courts, the various courts, you know, around us are talking a lot about it. Some of the things that they're wanting to do are not what we would want them to do, but at least they're making some movement. We continue to have the big issue, I think, that they have to fix first is criminal jury trials. Apparently they tried to impanel a grand jury in the county and only 2 people were willing to come in and sit on it. So it's not even just figuring out how you're going to space the jurors, but even getting them to come in.
Oh, wow.
They're trying different things, but the county says they're going to be doing criminal jury trials by July. I think that's going to be really tough. You know, I mean, it's just, they really are thinking very hard. The judges are doing a good job of trying to figure out how they're going to do it, but they can't just cram 300 jurors into a room anymore. And the criminal jury trials where the people are confined or they've invoked their speedy trial right, those get ahead. Those get to go first. And they've said they won't do any civil jury trials until at least September. And I really think it'll be next year before civil jury trials start to happen. Fortunately, most of what we do is not in a jury trial setting. And I am frankly really okay with my jury trials going off for a few months while we figure everything else out. Those are generally not as urgent. The county, the Supreme, I've told you before, there's the parallel systems of the governor and the county executives and the mayors, and then the Supreme Court and the local courts. So the Supreme Court has given guidance to how they're going to phase in court. And all these phases are dependent on the virus not going crazy again and a lot of people getting sick. But the county is proceeding very slowly. They are intent for the first phase, and they're not sure how long that will last, of really not having any live hearings. We're going to have to be able to do things remotely. And it looks like for those people who might be participating in a live hearing, that the state Supreme Court wants all the courts to use web. So if you think you're going to be needing to participate in a hearing or whatever, I would install WebEx on your phone. We are still, or on your computer, or however you like to use that. We are still implementing a strategy. We still think it's a good strategy to file suits now if you can. And then we're implementing the strategy for our clients of trying to get consent judgments. We are recommending to our clients generous, payment terms. And just so that we can get a judgment on file, we're not going to have to wait, for a long off docket date. And we'll be ready when the sheriff starts up again to start sending executions to the sheriff for the people that don't comply. The sheriff looked like they were going to put their toe in the water and maybe start doing evictions, but we've heard recently that they're not. So we're not really sure, and that's in St. Louis County. We're not really 100% sure what's going to go on with that. And as I was telling John before the meeting started, the counties are variously getting into the business of wanting what we're calling CARES Act affidavits to be filed along with any new eviction lawsuit. And I'm going to send one to John so that he can post it on your website so that you can see it. We have our own version of that affidavit that we are asking everyone to sign and send to us. We're being told in the county that we can't even file without having that CARES Act affidavit. And we're kind of willing to sign it for our clients that we know well, but we still want to get one signed by you because we want to make sure we don't violate those terms. And the terms are basically, if the property is HUD financed or it's a Section 8 tenant, we probably can't file evictions for right now. We're fighting over whether we could, for those tenants, whether we can file them at the end of July or at the end of August. We're pretty confident we can file them at the end of July, and we're correct on on that date. And Chris Bosler has written a very nice memo on that we've circulated to judges. So we're working on that. We still have a little while. But I would say that this is going to take a long time. And the sooner they're going to try to start doing some dockets remotely and that kind of thing, the sooner you get sued on file, probably the better off you are. And then we're going to want to work on consent judgments and getting those ready so that when we get to execute, we can execute. I'm going to hand you to Christine to give more info about the county.
I think
I just covered it all.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I think she's basically told you everything that I know about the county. We're not sure procedurally how they're going to do this whole video court hearings yet. We don't know if they're going to limit the number of cases. We're not sure how any of that's going to work yet. All we know is hopefully starting in June, we're going to start having these video type court hearings. It still may take a little longer in that we may not be able to get judgments on that initial court date if there's issues with either technical issues with a party logging into the system, or if someone doesn't have a means of appearing by video and they just show up at the court. We've been told that it's possible that there may be cases that could get continued because of that. We're still trying to work out how we're going to do anyone that does appear and agrees to a payment arrangement, how we're going to get that drafted, submitted, signed, etc. The county courts have said that they may just have both parties appear in front of the judge, have us read off all the terms that the parties are agreeing to, and that would be recorded in front of the judge to show that both parties are agreeing to those terms. And then what we would do is either the judge would draft the terms of the consent judgment and sign it and say that there was an agreement by video, etc., or we may submit something to the judge to sign off on after the fact. That's been one of our biggest things is being able to resolve some of these when they finally get back into court, if we can resolve them on this initial court date rather than delay it again to a second court date or possibly a third. And then we're still not sure how they're going to do the trials. We believe those will be by video as well. And again, we don't have specifics of that yet. But you know, hopefully they're going to give us something more in the next week or so, because I feel like they've got to do something if we're going to try and even use June for any of our court dates, because they need to get summonses out still. We're hoping that they're also including within that summons what they said were some kind of instructions about how to appear by video, and we've encouraged them to include information in there about persuading them to contact the attorney for the landlord, or if you're doing it pro se, the landlord, to see what could be worked out to try to avoid having an appearance. So that's where we're at with that. Have I missed anything?
No, I don't.
I think you covered a lot of
I'm sorry,
what
Christine.
we did on Wednesday.
Christine is working really hard, working her contacts with the St. Louis County Court to try to, get things going. A big concern that we have is that we're going to have, defendants who don't have access to the kind of technology that would allow them to appear remotely. We're hoping that maybe they'll at least allow them to appear by telephone, even if they can't do video, but that's all a work in progress. And I would say that I think St. Louis County seems to be the most conservative one so far as rolling things out. But we have good news in St. Charles. I'm going to hand you to Chris.
So St. Charles is going to be the one that opens up first. I'm going to be in court next Friday in person in St. Charles. They're only doing until the middle of June. They are only trying right now to get through landlord-tenant cases. They're prioritizing them, not letting anybody else be heard in person anyway through June 12th is what they're telling me. After that, I don't have a clear picture on what they're going to do, how quickly you could get into court, how how backlogged it's going to be, because they are giving time slots and trying to limit, like everybody else, to less than 10 people in a quorum at the same time, which after you take into account the judge, the bailiff, and the clerk, and one, a couple of attorneys, you're talking 5 people. So that's St. Charles is moving more quickly at the moment. They've also warned me if things spike, they're shutting it all down again. So now Jefferson is opening up in June. I'm getting court dates, but they are also doing 10-person time slots. And I recently filed a case in Jefferson, was assigned a July 28th court date. So if you can they're hoping it opens up more by July, but right now they can only assign a few court dates for every half hour. And so they are, it's one of those things where, it's getting in line. I'm going to try to, with my cases, if things get opening up more and trying to move them, see if I can't move them sooner, in a way I'm holding off on getting summons served just yet, just in case that happens. But we are trying to at least get on the docket, because there's no telling how long this is going to last and how far out you're going to be looking at 2-3 months on a court date. So, like Kathy said, I'm telling all my clients, file, get in line, unless of course you can talk with them and get them out. If you can't get them out, but you think you can talk with them and work with them, file them, send them to me, and we can file a consent judgment. And you wouldn't have to have that July 28th court date, because if they miss their June 15th payment, you're getting the judge to sign off on, you're getting the sheriff out there. I do anticipate St. Charles County and Jefferson County sheriffs are going to start moving a lot sooner than the city and St. Louis County, but I haven't had a word yet on how the sheriffs are doing. But I would assume that St. Charles County Sheriff is open for business as of next week. So, thanks, guys.
Okay. Yeah, we just think that the strategy of filing and getting consent judgments, if we can, is the best one. And we are recommending generous payment plans for people to induce them to do this. Because we could be looking at very late in the summer, if then, before we can actually have court dates or trials or those things. And if the tenants just bury themselves in a hole and refuse to call into court or whatever, not sure what we're going to do. They have indicated they'll let us take defaults under some circumstances, but then we're running the risk that the tenant's going to come back later and have it set aside, because they're going to say, well, I didn't have a phone. My phone was cut off. I didn't have WebEx or Zoom. So we don't know.
Wow. Yeah. Anybody have any questions? Yeah, we got a couple. There's one that was sent privately. Let's see here. And this has to do with occupancy. I have a tenant moving into an apartment in New City, and I contacted the city hall 2 weeks ago to schedule an occupancy inspection and was placed on a wait list. I followed up last week. The city hall rep stated I could not let the tenant move in until the inspection was completed. However, they did not give me a date. And I guess they want to know if there's any repercussions in the tenant moving in without the occupancy in New City.
Well, municipal courts are suspended right now too. So, I think that's something that we could probably work out. Do we know the prosecutor now in New City? No, we used to know the person over there. I'm not sure who it is now, but we can probably work that out when things start up again. So I'm not going to tell you not to do it. I guess as a lawyer, I shouldn't be sitting here telling you to break the law, but if they're not able to, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's if
it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to do the right thing with the cities.
Right.
No.
Right.
You're not willing to wait around.
Yeah, we think that we would be able to help you if you went ahead and put them in and they cited you.
So this might be a question where it might be best for him to call you directly when we put your.
That'll be fine.
Yeah. Okay. And let's see. And Kaya wants to know. Okay, but if the property is privately financed, evictions can be processed. I think it goes again with what you were saying with go ahead and file it.
Yes, if the property is privately financed, the eviction can be filed. However, you have to file that affidavit saying that it's not government financed.
Yes, which we'll have on the website.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know anything about Warren County? David would like to know.
We know anything about Warren County?
I would assume they're open for business.
We think that they're open for business. We're not 100% sure. We only have a couple of small clients out there in Warren County.
Mhm.
And one of them, in fact, just sold his building. So we're not sure. Yeah, we're not sure.
Okay. And then,
I would think those, that Warren County, Montgomery County, those counties, we go to them sometimes. And from just looking at what they say on the news, they've had very low rates of this.
right.
So I would think that they're more open.
Okay. And let's see, Harry would like to know, what about post and serve? He's saying the people will lie about it.
Well, I can tell you this. We are really encouraging our special process servers to just post if that's what they feel they need to do to be safe, to just post the summons on the door and file the return. Our special process servers are very good. One of them is my son, and we have never gotten their service successfully challenged. Someone can lie all they want, but I can tell you that our judges are not going to not.
Yeah, I can't imagine that's going to be.
Yeah, that's not going to be a
more of an
problem.
issue than normal.
We might not go after personal service as much as we did for a while, just to make sure our people are safe. But we're not, the service is not going to get set aside. What might get set aside is a default judgment, because they're going to have some story about why they couldn't, appear by telephone or whatever,
Oh, right.
but not the underlying service.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Any other questions? I think that's a good update this week, Kathy.
Thanks.
Yeah.
We feel
We wanted it to be better.
We wanted it to be better, Christine.
Well,
we really that we were getting more definite things, but I think everyone's scared. Nobody wants. If you went to us, if you've ever been in court with us
mm-hmm.
on our regular dockets, if you've come in for a trial or whatever, I mean, I'm amazed we're not all dead already, because people are not. A lot of people who aren't paying their bills don't have good hygiene. Some of them are, drunk or on drugs. I mean,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I also think that we heard from a friend of mine who's a retired judge who belongs to this National Judges Association, and apparently 2 judges in New York who do bulk dockets did die of the virus. So if the judges here know about that, we're going to be waiting for a while.
Oh, wow.
We're going to be
best to be safe.
Yeah, and if you can get information from your tenants to get cell phones and that kind of thing to help them appear in court, that would be a good thing too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know a lot of the tenants, you don't even want to go in their house after they move in.
I know. Right.
It's unfortunate. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I'm just glad everybody's aware about washing their hands right now.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Does anyone know when the county and county shelter in place gets lifted? I thought it was May 15th in the city.
I think it's May 18th in the county, but
Yeah.
they're only allowing certain things to happen. Like they're not allowing gyms yet.
Mm-hmm.
Limiting the number of people that can
Limiting
to 10, I believe.
Yeah, there's limits on how many people can be in your business, and that kind of thing.
But they're letting them open on the 18th if they want to.
If you cannot, they can open on the 18th if they want to. We know. I feel like I've looked at so many of these orders. I'm getting a little nervous about quoting one for sure. So I would, research that. Go on the St. Louis County website. They'll have the latest order up.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Just a couple comments. Cell phone companies are not shutting off service for 90 days.
Well, that's
yeah. I think the utilities they've got a kind of a memorandum on there too, a moratorium or whatever.
I think that with utility companies are definitely not shutting off. Yeah.
And then what David say? He was asking because the effects on your business rights under the CARE Act. Yeah. Okay. Okay, do we have any other questions today? I think you did a good job answering most of the things. I know a lot of it's still unsure, but that's, I think it's interesting with the juries, what you had said about that.
Yeah.
I remember when I was in the jury
I mean,
pool, yeah,
got
there
a
was.
jury notice, want to go?
Mhm.
If you got a jury notice, would you want to go and appear for jury duty?
I don't know. That's a good question right now. I
You
enjoyed
know.
it before. I don't know. Don't know.
Yeah.
So,
I don't think I would. I live in the city, so we get called a lot. I'm not too crazy about that.
yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot of people that come down there, and yeah.
Well, it's a pool, and that don't sound good to me anyway, a pool.
Yeah.
So.
Well, they don't have room in the jury room, in the big jury room, to assemble everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they go into a courtroom, they don't have room to sit them each 6 feet apart, while they're being picked.
It would certainly be an interesting jury trial, though, because they're only doing the criminal stuff and stuff that's really something that you need to get set now when they do implement that first. All these boring civil trials won't be happening for a while. So I guess if you do get called, it's going to be an interesting case. Nothing else.
You hope.
I would think lunch would be fun too. I know when I was on the jury trials, lunch cost about twice of what they paid you, but I don't see how they could enforce the 6 foot distance.
And I will clue you into this, at least in the city, none of the restaurants near the courthouse are open. So.
Oh gosh. So it's a brown bag lunch then, huh?
Yeah, lunch, because you're not going out.
Yeah, maybe I'd have to pass on that one. All right. Well, that's some great updates, Kathy. Thank you very much. And again, if you'd like to go ahead and repeat your phone number, and I'll put it to your card on there like I have been.
Thanks. Our phone number is 314-962-1115. I'm at extension 11. Chris is at extension 15, and Christine's at extension 13.
Excellent. Thank you so much, and we'll look forward to talking to you next week. If you need anything in the meantime, let me know, and I will get that affidavit put up on the website for you.
Great. I'll get that to you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.